What's up guys, and welcome to today's video. Very excited to ride this bike. This is a 2020 F900R. Now this one's a little fancier in the respect that it's got what BMW calls the accessories package. So it's going to come with the brake and clutch lever guard. It's going to come with the engine protection. It's going to come with the side bags, and it's also going to come with the BMW Motorrad tank bag. And other than that, this is a very similar spec to the F900R that I rode, which is kind of what I wanted. I wanted a bike that was very similar to that because I really loved that bike. If you watched my last video, you would know. And I wanted to see how this bike's going to kind of compare. You know, there were a couple things that I wanted to or would have changed in the F900R, or let's say my gripes with the bike. And I think that the F900XR can really address those things. You know, more wind coverage was one of the things that I definitely needed or would have liked for the type of riding that I do on the F900R. And I also would have liked a little bit more distance. So, you know, this is a taller bike, so my legs are in a different position, not so cramped. So we're gonna ride it. As always, we're going to go on an MC Commute. We're gonna take it home, take it back in the morning, and go over the overall thoughts. But other than that, you know, I said it about the F900R, and I'll say it about this bike. I wasn't super excited about this bike when it came out, and I wasn't really super excited to ride it, but it's much better in white. You know, the first one that showed up was gold, and then the other one was red, and, you know, red's red. But this, I don't know if it's the accessories package, everything kind of tying in together, but this is a good-looking bike, you know, and a couple things that I'm looking to get out of it is a little bit of a comfier ride. You know, the F900R I felt was very stiff, and I do like these bags. You know, it makes the bike very practical. My backpack already in one of the side bags, which, you know, if you watch my last videos or almost any of my videos, I hate riding with the backpack. This tank bag is super sweet. Even comes with a dual USB charger built into it, runs down to the accessory port. Same equipment as the F900R that I rode, so quick shifter, auto blipper, gear shift assist pro is what BMW calls it, cruise control, the TFT screen with all of the bells and whistles that kind of come with that, heated grips, different riding modes, right around the same horsepower, right around the same noise. LED headlights in the front. I'd probably add a nice set of fog lights. I was walking around this bike a couple times, and one of my gripes with it is now that we're LED headlight, you know, I wish both turned on. The high beam is off, so probably just means I'll be riding around with my high beam on. Yes, I'm that guy, but those headlights are also really cool. You know, look at the 4 LED setup. So pretty slick bike. You know, this might be more in my wheelhouse as far as what I would consider to buy, considering it might be a little set up better for commuting and touring. These bags look slick. They come already matching the bike color, and, you know, just the shape and the mounting, super easy, nice and sturdy. All right guys, let's take it for a spin. So like I said, this bike comes with a nice little USB adapter, waterproof pouch, which I tested already. I've never really used them, but I've never been a huge fan of tank bags, but this one's pretty neat, nice and waterproof, comes with straps and all that stuff. Plus, you know, this stuff, tank bags, side bags, all that stuff adds up. Like, to be able to get that stuff in a package included with the bike, it's definitely going to save you some pennies. So just kind of keep that in mind. It is very warm in New York City today. We'll be using trusty Waze to get us home, really just mainly for the traffic and the police. Oof, love the noise. Could always be louder, but love the noise. So, as I said, brand new bike for 2020. Based off of the, very lightly, off of the F chassis, F850 GS. Instantly you can tell that the suspension is softer than the F900R, and I'm sitting much taller. I'm not flat footing this bike. Not bad either though, right on the balls of my feet. I have the BMW Motorrad app connected to my phone, so it's telling me the current speed limit of the road that I'm on. Man, people in New York just don't care. Well, yeah, so telling me what the speed limit of the road that I'm on is. I guess it hasn't updated just yet. I have no music connected, because why not just enjoy the sounds of this parallel twin? Oh yeah, bags are on this bike, right? Yes, bags are on this bike. I have bags on this bike. So a lot of things feel the same in comparison to the F900R. The reach kind of feels the same. The upright body position feels the same. But my legs definitely have more wiggle room. Definitely a further reach to the ground, which is fine because my feet, you know, I'm on the balls of my feet, which I'm comfortable at that point because I don't even get that on my GS. I'm on like my tiptoes on my GS, depending on the suspension mode I'm in, but that's good enough for me, to be honest. So realistically, I know that this bike is going to feel very similar to the F900R. I want to see if it kind of addresses the concerns that I had on the F900R for what I would use the bike for personally. And if you watch my F900R video and you kind of like all the things that I was talking about, then that might be the bike for you. Like I said, I'm a one bike guy. My one bike kind of has to do everything: commute, be fun, tour. This bike could definitely tour, you know, from what I can tell so far. So we'll see. You know, I basically wanted a little bit more leg room and I wanted some wind coverage. So we're gonna see if the F900XR accomplishes that while still keeping it all exciting. Same functions pretty much as the F900R. You know, don't get too complicated with what does this bike do that that bike doesn't, what does that bike do that this doesn't. You know, full TFT. You're gonna have the mild vehicle display, same thing, onboard computer, the trip computer, ride modes, the heated grips, the sport display. That's a whole gold dude. All right, he likes the bike. Traction control, how much the traction control is working. Braking decelerometer, pretty much telling me how much I'm braking. The lean angle, active and maximum. Yeah, bike still sounds good. Bike sounds as good as the F900R, which is to be expected. It's the same motor. Feels slightly geared different, but we'll see. You know, one thing I find curious about this bike, maybe they're just doing that on purpose to separate it from the F850 GS, but 9 times out of 10 when you see adventure bikes and adventure touring bikes, they're gonna have hand guards. You know, they're gonna have those plastic covers in front of the, or rather attached to the handlebar, at the end of the handlebar, to just kind of keep some wind, keep some dirt, keep some brush, keep some bugs off of your hands, especially at on long trips. Now I can understand if this bike never really goes off-road, or why would it ever need to have hand guards, but they're also nice for the wind. If you are using this bike year-round and you want to keep the cold wind off of your hands in the wintertime, that plus a set of heated grips like this bike had or has would really help in conjunction. But that's really not hard to fit, either from BMW's parts bin or even from the aftermarket. Barkbuster is a great company that makes those, so not the end of the world. I do really wish, you know, after riding this and after riding the F900R, I really wish they were equipped with auto hold. You know, I really never liked riding with tank bags, but I don't mind this one. I guess on my sport bikes I never really enjoyed them because they always feel like, you know, they're on your chest. But I guess on an upright bike like this it's not so bad because there's a little bit of distance between it and you. I really don't know if I would ever use one. I probably put my cell phone up here and charge it, but I don't know. I like my RAM mount, or a lot of guys use the what is that, the quick lock? So to each their own, and people can't. Come on, man. The bikes, bikes aren't meant for the street unless it's a motorcycle, and only if it's a BMW in my books. But whatever. Yeah, suspension is instantly. You can instantly notice the difference between the F900R and the XR. This is a much softer ride. I mean, you can assume it's a taller bike, so it gives you more suspension travel. Doesn't need to be as stiff, and I'm sure it can still afford you the maneuverability and the ride quality that you want. We'll find that out. but that stiffness was, that was noticeable. On a day-to-day basis, it might get a little annoying. This is much easier to lane split than the RT I rode not too long ago. Sounds nice. And you can just tell also, between this bike and the F900R, there's just so much more bike around you. I have the windshield in the low position, probably till I get on the highway. But there's just so much more bike around you. You can see I've got so much more room for my legs. Even when I put them up, it's not as high. I feel like so far the seat on this bike is good. You know what? This seat feels a lot like the S1000XR seat. And if you have ever sat on one of those, that seat really gives you no room to move back and forth. Not that that's a bad thing, but it really locks you into position, kind of giving you a sport bike feel to where you're really maybe just going to be moving laterally. I guess depending on your comfort level and experience, I feel like this would be a very easy to get used to get comfortable on. The mirrors, I can pretty much get a very nice field of view, although somebody messed this one up. So you almost forget that you have bags, and it's not because that they're not there. You definitely see them, which I really like, but you kind of you don't feel like you're on this big footprint. You don't feel like you have this big platform of motorcycle underneath you. Almost, it's like a lot of BMW bikes. I know, like my GS, it looks big and intimidating, and a lot of people say that, but then you hop on it and the bike just disappears. So far, the suspension feels great. That was one of my number one things that I would need if I was looking into a bike, or comparing it to the F900R. And I like that, though. I like that the F900R so far seems drastically different than this. The F900R seems a little bit quicker off the line. Not saying that this is any slower. That bike just felt a little peppier off the line, and that also might mean that there's a trade-off. This bike might have better top-end gearing. It's also heavier compared to the F900R. There's more bodywork, there's more aerodynamics, so you're going to get a little bit of a differing feel. So I think that the F900R feeling fairly different than the F900XR is a good thing. And so far, I'm going over all these bumps on this horrible, what am I on, Queens Boulevard, and the bike's soaking them up. You might hear a little jump or two in my voice when I'm going over them, but that's only because I'm speaking while I'm going over them. Good thing about my commute, the good thing about New York City, is there's no shortage of potholes. There's no shortage of potholes. There's no shortage of bad roads, road work, construction, traffic. So I'll put it through its paces, and if it's good there, it's gonna be good everywhere else. It's gonna be good on the best of days. It's gonna be good when you don't have any traffic and you're on that perfectly flat road, and who knows where you are, but hopefully you're on a tour. Hopefully you're enjoying wherever you are when you take this bike out, or any bike out. Maybe I'll do a review on that bike and see how it is. Looks like that thing could do with a comfort seat. Max I've taken this bike up to so far has been about 40 miles an hour, and the wind coverage definitely feels different, mainly because I'm a little warmer. There's a lot less wind hitting you, and that's a trade-off. An F900R is definitely going to give you more airflow, and then it's also going to give you more wind resistance. Once you're up at the speed, you're going to be the resisting factor in the wind. So we'll see how it is once we get on the highway. Waze redirected me this way. Seems like there was some traffic on the LIE. Surprise, surprise. So, man. This bike handles bumps so much better than the F900R does. And again, it's because they're geared to do two different things. So I've been on the highway for a little bit. I love this little stretch of the northern state. It just looks like a racetrack. But I've been on the highway for a little bit now. I have the windscreen rather, up in the tall position. Dealing with traffic, another bump. And dealing with the humidity, dealing with the heat, dealing with this bike as if it were mine. And so far I don't have much negatives to report. The power is very intoxicating, very similar to the F900R. The quick shifter and the auto blipper for the upshifts and the downshifts, very, 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 very nice. the bike is agile, even though it's taller. And I know I said that word a lot for the F900R, but that's because it was. And if you get to ride one, you'll agree with me. But this bike feels almost like a taller version, but you couldn't tell. Yes, I've got more room in the bend in my leg, just kind of overall more room. Oh, that's necessary. See, people in New York drive crazy, and I'm on a motorcycle. But there's a lot more room on this bike. You can even see just with the tank, with the bodywork and all that stuff, there's just so much more room. I feel like everybody's trying to get around me. Am I going slow? I think, in my opinion, I would probably still do a taller windshield, but that's not doing a disservice to BMW, because like I say, with certain things, foot pegs, seats, windshields, you're not going to make everyone happy, because everybody is different shapes and sizes. And so far in every motorcycle I've owned, one of the first things that I've upgraded were the windshields. So it is what it is. I got a big head, I get a lot of buffeting, I like upgraded windshields. So just a taller version, and I think that would be great. I definitely feel like this bike would be easier to ride every day. I remember when I was making the F900R video, I'm riding that thing and I'm like, I can't even hear myself in my helmet. How's anybody else gonna hear me? And I haven't thought that once on this bike. Not nearly as much wind coverage as the R1250 RT, or rather with the windscreen the size of a car window. So that's to be expected. I feel like this is a little happy medium. And when I think about this bike, I don't want people to think, oh man, do I go F900XR or do I go S1000XR? Do I do F900R or S1000R? Nice color in 3. Each bike, in my opinion, is at the pinnacle of its class. So they're not replacements, they're not competing with each other. If you're looking for a parallel twin that doesn't need all the horsepower and speed in the world versus an X1000XR, which is obviously race bred, that would be a bike to consider. Same with the F900R and the S1000R. Both of those bikes are great in their own rights. They're not competing against each other, not by any means. So how does it commute so far? Well, initial impressions, as with most BMW that I ride, I really haven't found a bike that I don't like. Plus, they've been doing it long enough. They should have figured it out by now, right? But initial impressions, I like it. I like the seating position. I like the wind coverage, albeit I think that there could be more. I like the usability of this bike. I could see myself using it every day. The hard bags that I barely feel are there are nice. They hold all my stuff. Everything that I brought with me to the office today is split pretty much in one bag. I've got the whole other empty bag, so who knows how far you could go with storage, especially if you put a top box on it or even like a waterproof duffel. The bike has great power and a great noise. I love the torque of this 900 parallel twin. It just feels really peppy. And I was doing a little test. I was on Queens Boulevard and I was doing maybe like 20 miles an hour, 25 miles an hour. And I left it in 5th gear to see how happy or unhappy the bike would be. And it really didn't have any problems with it. You know, you rolled on the throttle, you got a little amount of lugging, as you would with any bike. Yeah, it just kind of picked up and go, so I didn't really have to do a lot of upshifting, downshifting. Seems perfectly comfortable in the back roads, not too heavy. Around town, doesn't feel too big or too much bike for rural streets. So yeah, I think this bike so far, it's got pretty good impressions. I'll check back with you in the morning and we'll go from there. I also need to zip up my jacket, so that's where cruise control is going to come in handy. Set that up. Take my hands off the wheel. Bar, take my hands off the bar. Zip up my jacket. Also close this pocket. Alright, cruise control off. Continue your onward journey to work. guys, while I'm headed back into the city. I'm gonna see how the 900R does and check back in with you in a little bit. Good morning, everybody. We are back in the city. Feels like we never left. But also, we are back on the F900XR. And I just wanted to kind of sum up my thoughts about this bike on this beautiful day. And I gotta be honest, it has been a joy to ride. It is responsive. The power is really nice. The torque in the mid-range, especially in the lower gears, is really nice. The bike feels like a sport bike almost, the weight wise, and then you put your feet down and then it feels like a touring bike or an adventure bike because you've got really good foot placement. You've got enough distance and height to kind of place your legs. It almost feels a little maybe too tall for the average person, but the bike is also offered in a low suspension version, so you know, don't worry about that. The wind coverage is adequate. I would definitely want a little bit more, whether I decided to put some hand guards on the bike or a taller windshield, or maybe a windshield with a adjustable flap on the top. But I'm in my sport bike helmet, and in most of these videos I do, I'm in my sport bike helmet, and they're notoriously loud as far as wind management is concerned. And that's what I noticed is on the highway rather, with some decent wind, you know, you're really hearing it. So that's one thing I would adjust or pretty much upgrade. Another thing that I would definitely upgrade is the seat. Pretty stiff. Not gonna lie, yeah, my butt's gone numb a couple occasions. Had to shift my weight around and, you know, try and manage that. But I would definitely do a comfort seat from BMW, or even an aftermarket one, Sargent, Corbin. There's a bunch of companies that make comfort seats, so I would put that on the list for this bike. I would do wider foot pegs. Again, whether they're BMW, whether they're another aftermarket company, I would do wider foot pegs. Not longer foot pegs, not more aggressive foot pegs, just wider foot pegs. This is kind of what BMW calls the comfort foot peg. I don't think you can really see it. And they're nice and soft, you know, because they're covered in rubber, so it's not that your feet go, or your feet are uncomfortable, but there's just not much surface area there. So I find myself not having many happy spots to put my feet. So normally when I ride, I'm on the balls on my feet. But on this bike, like, if I get a little tired or you know, I get a little hot spot with putting my foot there, I can't really put it anywhere else because, you know, it's just, yeah, there's not a whole lot of surface area there. So I would like wider foot pegs. You know, I was even thinking maybe putting the Adventure foot pegs on, the foot pegs from the F850 Adventure. And that might be a nice alternative, although remember, those are spiked, so that might tear up your boot or give you a little bit too much grip from day to day. I love the bags that came with this bike. You know, you don't have to get the BMW ones. There's lots of companies that make them, but I do love the bags that came with this bike. Remember, this is a bike with the accessories package, so it's going to come with 2 color match side cases to the bike. As long as you have them installed by your Motorrad dealer, they will also be keyed to the key for the bike, so that's always nice. You know, I've started to appreciate the TFT a little bit more, especially in the sport mode, or the sport display, because it's this meter on the right. You know, I kind of thought it was a little useless until I did a little bit more research on it, and even though it's not actually showing you your brake pressure, what it's showing you is the rate at which you're slowing down, which, if you can think about it, is technically the same thing, but it's not. I had to do a pretty decent, I had to grab a pretty decent handful of brake on the cross island back there, and you know, I was at the point where I was like, oh man, I was at the point where I was like, oh man, that's a lot of brake. I don't know how much more brake I had left in that. And then I looked down at this gauge. I'm like, well, I wasn't even really slowing down as much as I really could. You see, that just popped up. That's active deceleration, and then the gauge on the right is the maximum that you've done. So I kind of like that gauge. And then the gauge over here is traction control intervention, pretty much just how much the traction control is taking away power from you to make sure that you retain all the grip that you need. Oh, can I squeeze through there? I think so. This is why we ride motorcycles. Oh yeah, nicely done. But this bike, yes, this bike has really been a pleasure to ride. I would consider it for sure for a daily rider, for a commuter bike. I would consider it for something that's going to go on tours. I think it's possible of all of those. I think you definitely need to ride it back to back for a couple days to fall in love with it. Off the rip, you're not going to fall in love with it. Oh, you're not going to fall in love with it like I fell in love with the F900R. The F900R is just a little bit more thrilling. I think it's geared differently, so it's a little bit more aggressive riding, especially on the acceleration. It just, yeah, it gives you a little bit more of a visceral feel, especially because it is a naked bike and it's so small. Like, you know, watch that video, then watch this video. There's so much more bike around me, you know, compared to the F900R. But the F900R also had its drawbacks: super stiff suspension, no wind coverage, the seat was the foot position was very high. So, you know, how far and how long would you really ride that bike? Is your commute 20-30 minutes? Perfect. Is it longer? Well, then, you know, that bike might become a little stressful. And I like this bike for a second option. I think this bike will really prolong your rides because it does have better wind coverage and it does have better foot positioning, and it still gives you all of those things that you really like about the F900R. So yeah, I think that if you're looking for a mid to upper range touring bike, parallel twin, something narrow, something that's not so big as, you know, like a 1250 or even some of the other adventure bikes that are out there, or touring bikes out there, sport tourers, I think that this bike in the 900 category should definitely be on your list for consideration. The brakes on this bike are great. At slow speed, at high speed, it just bleeds off the speed in a very manageable way. It's not too assertive. It's really kind of just how much brake do you want is how much brake you're going to get from the bike. It's very progressive. I like the way that these brakes feel. What the? Pretty sure that's illegal. I'm pretty sure that's illegal. I'm pretty sure that's illegal. Stupid NYPD. Anyway. So yeah, that's my 2 cents. Go check out the F900XR. I love it in this white color. It also comes in gold and red. Come on, come on, come on, come on, come on. Why don't you take your time? Yeah, this has a nice noise too. Now I looked up the SC Project exhaust for these bikes. I don't know, for a glorified slip-on. Oh, what are we doing? For a glorified, it's a nice color. My mom had one of those back in the day. Sorry, ADD. For a glorified slip-on, the SC Project. Now that I know it's very high quality and it's going to be a great piece, so, you know, I'm not taking anything away from them or that. But $1,300. Why don't we? All right, well, not my way. But you just still look driving like a dick. Oh man, I'm sorry. Get to the point, Anthony. For $1,300, I think that's a lot of money for an exhaust. Although exhausts and bikes and everything else are just getting more expensive nowadays. So weigh your options. Definitely do something to get a little bit more noise out of this bike. I think you'll enjoy it. Let me know what you want to see ridden next. Let me know what I can get you some information on. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Come on, New York, this morning. Wow. Yeah, I'm just riding my bicycle in the middle of the road. Like, come on, guy. Oh, people are horrible. Oh, wait. You know what? Now, after riding this, I would upgrade the horn. I would upgrade the horn on all the bikes. I think all the bikes should have car horns. That's what I think. If it were my bike, I'd put a car horn on it, or a horn from the back, and you're just not paying attention. Alright guys, thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.